He pipi, he pōpō, ka pā ki tua, ka pā ki waho, ka pā ki a tānei. Whanu whanu hara mai te toki, hangi e hui e, tāre ki e.
Te Hora Marae sits at the confluence of the Whakamarino and Te Hoiere rivers, at the feet of Tutu Māpau Maunga in Cambestown.
Over all the years, and I can remember growing up, I was away shearing down south and up north. And I come back and I'm hearing the stories about our whānau all going over to Te Hora, to Cambestown, to sleep in the hall and have their sports activities and all the activities together. And even the kids had wonderful activities. And I thought, you know, this is not right. You know, we need something.
And much like many marae throughout the motu, it has a rich history. Prior to being built, the Te Hora community's sports, card games, whānau gatherings, weekend get-togethers and tangi hākari were held in the old Cambestown Hall.
E mihi atu ki a rātou ko e nehoa mai. Nō reira toia mai te wairu. Ko nā mātua tūpuna. Hei awhi e a mātou i te ihi, te wehi, i te tapu i te mana. E manaaki e te aki a mātou e tēnei rā. E tō kaha, me tō aroha, me te rangi Māori e. Hui e, tāi ki e.
See, our urupa's always been there. And when somebody died, the Blenheim lot would come over. And the Nelson lot would come over. We'd bury our person there, and then we'd go to the pub, and the pub would put on a cup of tea or something for us. And then we'd say goodbye and we'd just go our own ways. And so that was pretty horrible.
The Marlborough District Council later sold the hall to the Cambestown Settlers Association, which meant that hui were no longer possible. Ngāti Kuia whānau then decided to call a series of hui to discuss the establishment of a marae.
Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te aro whai o tō tātou riki o Irukureiti. Me te aroha o te atua. Me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tau. Ake. Amen.
I was talking to my mother, and I said to my mother, you know, we need to get a piece of our land and set it apart for marae because we've got nothing. And she said, yeah, well, you know, you need to go for it. And I said, me, you know, because I was only pretty young then, what am I going to do? So I thought about this for a while. And I got together with Auntie Shirl and my Auntie Shirl McDonald.
We used to have a community club and it all started from there, stemmed from there. And we used the hall and all that, and then Riverdale, Wakamarina to stay in and things like that, you know, and things changed. And so that's why we needed a marae in our own land, you know. And Duncan had, around about 89, he had arguments with the iwi to try and find a block of land to have a marae, you know. And then we sort of came in after that, you know, once the judge determined a death for Ngāti Kuia, then that's when we sort of got into the rest of it.
And I said, Auntie Shirl, who owns all that scrub rubbish over there, that land over there? It's got all the rubbish and trees and gorse and everything on it. He said, well, she said, I'm an owner in there. I said, what? She said, yes, I'm an owner in there. I said, well, she said, as a matter of fact, that's where your tupuna lived, in a house there, on that land. And the manahitas lived over there, and different ones. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that, look at it now. So I said to Auntie Cheryl, will you give your piece of land for the marae? She said, yes. So that was it. We went for that. A lot of opposition. A lot of our whānau come over from Blenheim to object because they were owners in there. And after several meetings, we finally got an agreement. That's the place. And on that marae, on that urupa that day, I stood up because there were other objectors from other pieces that were there, and I said, that's where our marae is going, right there. And I just knew it was going to happen. And it did.
So in 1987, the dream finally came to fruition with the land known as Block Te Hora 32A 2A2 gifted by whānau to be set aside as a Māori reservation.
That's what happened, and we got a piece of that putia, and we were able to build a shed on there, a big shed. And that's where the wharenui is today. It's in that there. They had the kitchen at the back, we had the wharenui in the front, and but the wonderful thing was, that's when the iwi come together. All the whānau. I'd go past there, heading my way to Blenheim in my mahi, and I'd stop, and there'd be Uncle Bill Hemi and Jim Walker, and all their families would be there, and they'd be all doing stuff around the place, cleaning it up, and you know, and Uncle Joe McDonald and all his family. I shouldn't have started naming names because I'll probably miss somebody up, but there was a lot of our whānau there doing the mahi, just coming together.
Even the building of Marae, you know, Tom and I went down and we mowed a square out in the middle of the bush and trees and that's where the Marae was going to go. And Dad rang up, even though he didn't really have the knowledge of the culture here, but he knew the history and things. He said, oh, we need to bless something. You know, we need to bless that building. That before we can start building on the Monday, you know, we had to bless it. So where do we get a minister from? Then we found out that Richard Wallace came up and he realised that he had tupunas in the cemetery. So everything was sort of based on that cemetery. And then we thought we've got to cover the Mormons. So we found an old marquee, we put the marquee up, got food and all that done and got the land blessed. And
you know, you heard the expression, the sleeping giant? That's what we were called. It was us. They were calling us the sleeping giant, Ngāti Kuia. Well, it woke that day and they were back. And I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was a beautiful feeling. And then after that, of course, when we have our tangis, Blenheim lot would come over, Nelson lot would come over, we'd all stay together for a few days. We'd, you know, bury our dead one, our loved one, and be together.
Morena koutou. No mai. No mai. Turupa no tō tūmana.
In 1990, the very first Ngāti Kuia hui was held at Te Hora Marae, which included the formation of Te Runanga o Ngāti Kuia.
Tēnei te kōrero o Ngāti Kuia, tēnei whakarongo mai te iwi nei, whakarongo mai te motu nei, aha ko te iti o Ngāti Kuia e. Kore te whakamā, ka piriki ahau. Kore te whakamā, ka piriki ahau. He maire tuau ki tēnei whenua.
And the thing is that we used to have 60 to 80 people at each meeting, you know. You hardly have a hui or iwi meeting now, but we used to have them all the time. So it actually got us closer to everybody because they were all making this decision, you know what I mean? And when it came to the language and that, and relying on the support of the kaumātuas, like not really knowing too much of the history at the time, it was those kaumātuas that guided us. We knew how to sort things out as we went along, and we did it in not just on your own back. We did it with everybody making a decision.
In 2001, a modern ablution block was built with iwi pūtea and a lottery's Marae heritage and facilities ground. Further iwi fundraising from the Marae Komiti brought 2 new stoves, a refrigerator and a freezer.
And the smells of Ngāti Kuia would come back. I could smell napa. Some of the North Islanders don't know what napa is, but we call it the oven bread. That's what we call the napa here. And I could smell the napa cooking in that oven. And the Ngāti Kuia, one of the favourite words Ngāti Kuia used was the word lick. Oh, he's a blinking lick, that fella. Don't listen to him, he's a lick. And all those words were coming out, the Ngāti Kuia smells, the Ngāti Kuia words.
On the 23rd of October 2010, the long-awaited signing of Te Whakatau, the Ngāti Kuia deed of settlement, took place at Te Hora Marae. And 2013 saw the start of the building of the new wharekai, which was formally opened on the 19th of March 2016.
Ko whakarangatira, ko whakamanahi anō ko tau I te whakatūwharatanga o tēnei o tātou wharekai. Ko kai au wahine. E hara te mea. He ingoa tupuna tērā. Ungari ia. He tu āhuatanga tērā ingoa. He māra kai tērā I nā wā mua.
Then I start thinking about the old people that did all that mahi over the years. And I want them to be recognised. You know, I've already mentioned him, Uncle Joe, Auntie Cheryl, it's his wife. You know, and Uncle Bill Hamey, Uncle Coom Hamey, and the Walkers from Blenheim. You know, all those people that had their hearts in that marae and building that marae. I just hope they get recognised. And one other person that I want to remember, because I knew I needed to have some sort of support when I went to Māori Affairs. I just didn't feel right about doing it on my own. It was just me and Auntie Cheryl. And so I said to Auntie Cheryl, who's the oldest Ngāti Kuia? And she said, oh, that'd be Uncle Sam, Manahira. So I went and sat down with Uncle Sam and I told him what I wanted to do. And he gave me his blessings. Go for it, boy. Go for it. Build our marae. And so that's what we did.
The dream that we had back then is what we're getting now. And we wish that they were part of it, you know what I mean? I know they were part of it at the beginning, we wouldn't have it because of them. But now, it's a pity they couldn't see how we've developed. And really, it started through the cemetery.
I knew that with my kaumātua behind me, we couldn't fail. And we haven't. You know, we are known as the humble tribe down here. Ngāti Kuia. We've never tried to take leadership roles in anything. We've always stayed at the back. We were the hunters and gatherers of the kai when we had tangi. We were the ones in the kitchen doing the mahi, never up front. And you know, that humility has paid off. Our iwi is going forward, and I have to say we got one of the best CEOs in the world with you, Dave. And I don't think we'd be this far ahead if it wasn't for you.
What started out as land dominated by gorse and scrub, cow bales and an orchard of wild cherry trees has now become a sustainable state-of-the-art facility for Ngāti Kuia.
I used to chair the iwi in those days, and then I can remember we had a new headmaster come into Nelson Intermediate, and it was Joe Waihaere and Meihana. So I went in there and I said, Joe, it's time for you to come and to put some time into the iwi. Oh, I'm pretty busy. Pretty busy, I've got a lot to do. I said, no, man, I don't care, we need you. Because I'm resigning because my family needs me. So Joe come into the meeting, he took over as chairman, and I resigned as chairman and went back to Tapawera with my grandchildren. We brought 4 of our grandchildren up at that time.
We're having people now who are not afraid to speak. That's what I think has been the very best thing to happen. Being part of the community.
It's such a great place. The kitchen for our kuia, when those things were built, Waihaere was a project manager for that, and he was a very inclusive man. So he was wanting everybody's opinion, you know, to get things right, and to, I suppose, say later on that they all helped. We all helped build those things, and they were done with people who have done catering in mind. So, you know, and it works and runs just fantastically.
And there's one other couple that I want to remember, and that is my Uncle Tom and Eli, who are there now. They've been there right behind us all the way, and then they're in the position they're in now. And so, you know, there are other people too, and I'm sorry if I've left them out. But you know, I think we need to give them the accolades they need, that they should have had. Very humble, just did the mahi, and that's Ngāti Kuia.
Today, Te Hora Marae is the historical tūranga waiwai of Ngāti Kuia. The complex now consists of 3 buildings. The whare moi has been named Te Rupe o Ruapaka, after the rupe kaitiaki of the ancestor Kupe. Te Hoiere is the whakaruru hau that joins the whare moi and the whare kai, just as the Hoiere awa flows and joins the Te Hora area to the Ruapaka area. The whare kai au wahine, is named after a mara used by Ngāti Kuia on the northern side of Te Hoiere awa.
I've got the confidence now of this committee and this trust, and even in the workers. I mean, in the old days, that's all we wanted. We wanted to make sure that people would be able to develop, and their well-being would be able to develop, because, you know, they were working. Now we've got staff that we're proud of, and we've got, well, Dave, of course, and even the trustees now, you know. We've got people that have got the ability to run Ngāti Kuia.
Oh, Te Hora Marae, it's the heartland for us now. Before that, there was another marae out there called Te Oranga, you know, but Te Hora Marae, you know, in the last 40 to 50 years, you know, has created a place for us all to be. You know, the heartland, you know, what we call Te Wainganui or Te Tauiho Te Waka Maui. You know, so the centre of the island, and to some people say the centre of the universe. But Te Hora Marae, when we used to go out there years ago, it was very, very small and not very whānau friendly. You know, but now that we've, and I think we could host probably 30 people inside the whare on a rainy day. So now the ability, you know, it's uplifted our mana at the marae by being able to manaaki people, to hold big events like we held a couple of weeks ago with all of our kaumātua, and we had a minister there, we had high-level officials from other government agencies, our mayor. It's great. It's a sense of pride to be able to bring your manahuri into a really nice place that you've worked for 40-odd years.
Ka whakawhitia Ngāti Kuia ki te ao. Mohi o te ao katoa Ngāti Kuia. Me ona iwi katoa. E whakahira mai te ingoa tō tātou tipuna a kuia. O ngā mokopuna, o ngā tamato I ki te hara mai.
The number one thing, you know, that we've always had for our marae is for our people to come home, and that sense of pride when they do get home, and they can base, you know, they can base their time, you know, from the marae, because it's always event focused, you know, and you come back, you stay for a week, you might have a whānau reunion, could be tangi, could be wedding, could be 21st, you know, and those are the things when we see our whānau wanting to hire our marae, even knowing that tikanga comes first. And if there is a mate, then, you know, then those have priority. So, but they're always willing to take a second spot to tikanga, and that's another sense of pride and mātauranga that's been instilled into our whānau.
Look, I can say now that we got the most beautiful marae. It's a beautiful marae. What I love about it is I love the meeting house. And then there's got that partition next to it, and then you got the whare kai. And that partition can be used multi-purpose for sleeping or for eating as an overflow for thing. And I think a lot of people admire that. They do. I hear a lot of people telling me, what a beautiful marae that is.
E tātou kālawa kia whakarungo mai o mātou ino I tēnei wā. Uhu ki ngā mea ki a koe mau nei whakapura mai I rote a koe te whitingatanga mai o te toi o ngārangi. Whiti rā e o kia whakatau mai te aji o rangi I rungi a rangirao ko papatunu ki a mātou ngā uri whakae ke iho nei. A Ngāti Kuia tiwi pākohe, tiwi karakia, tiwi pumai ue rotu I te tauiho te whakamā, I te whai ao te ao mārama, haumi, hui e, tāki.
Whakatau nau te pohiri, ki te hoi ere o matua hai tere, kai awarona I arataki, ki ruta. Tutu mapo Maira ki runga, koe a te iwi pako he Ngāti Kuia, maranga maira e ngā moko pū. te mātau te tauranga, maunga tapu ki titiro kawa
Titiri whakamaua, e whanake ake, whanake ake.